I'm Patrick Watson, I'm an astrologer, and you're watching Big Fat Astrovlog. And today I'm going to be delivering a monthly horoscope for all Pisces risings out there for the month of August 2018. And I'm not talking about Pisces suns, I'm talking about Pisces risings. So this horoscope will only apply to you if you were born when the tropical sign of Pisces was rising on the eastern horizon at the time of your birth. So if you're not sure what rising sign you are, you need your birth date, birth time, that's important, and birthplace. Go to www.astro.com, put in your chart details, and you should be able to find out what rising sign you are. And I'm able to make these general prognostications about what may happen to you based on your rising sign because of whole sign houses. The relationship each sign has to the ascending sign, in this case Pisces, tells us what area of life each sign pertains to. So as you can see here, I've written out the general house significations for each sign here. And on the inner ring here, I have the glyphs for all the planets and where they will be in the month of August. And you can see a key here for all those glyphs if you're unsure of what they're about. I also have a one-word summary of what they all generally do in the Zodiac. And then, of course, I have the glyphs and names of the Zodiac, the signs on the outer circle. So the first big thing that I noticed for August is the fact that on August 11th, the sun and moon are together, but because normally it would be a new moon, but because they're so close to the North Node, this makes it a solar eclipse. So this solar eclipse will begin a new beginning it will be the beginning of a new narrative in your life that concerns issues of the sixth house. So if you look at the sixth house, we can see that it's about illness and injury and employment and what you kind of avoid, like your duties and responsibilities. It's the ways in which you're of service to people, but it can also just generally signify people who are in like service positions towards you. So some of these topics aren't terribly great. So having a solar eclipse there would suggest that these are the things which kind of are really important over the coming year from the point of that eclipse. And this could manifest in the form of potentially having an illness yourself, but I don't want to say that will absolutely happen. Sometimes it's dealing with the illness of someone else, or how the topic of illness generally may affect your life in this time period. We know that it doesn't look bad just by itself. Just from the way that it's laid out. It's conjunct Mercury, which sometimes is bad, but Mercury's kind of a trickster. Mercury's kind of ambiguous. Mercury's kind of a troll. So we don't always know if he's going to be bad or good. But it is also square Jupiter. It's in a 90-degree aspect to Jupiter. So Jupiter is also kind of has something to say about this eclipse. Now, what I should note about that Mercury retrograde, though, is Mercury is retrograde. It appears to be moving backward in the sky as we start August, but it stations direct on August 19th. See how I went from red to black there? So that's when Mercury stations direct, and that will be when the retrograde period ends. Now, there's the stereotypical things we associate with Mercury retrograde, like miscommunication going awry, schedule mishaps, misstatements, having to do things over and over again, things breaking, losing things, finding them again, discovering things. Mercury just kind of goes a bit quirky in that time period. So all the things governed by Mercury kind of start, not acting as expected. Now, that it's important to note, though, that Mercury retrograde is happening in the sixth house. So oftentimes what Mercury basically does is it unsettles the topic of the house that it goes through. So the issues of employment and duties and responsibilities and service and injuries and illnesses and health and stuff are all kind of being unsettled by Mercury's transit through and Mercury's retrograde movement through that sign of Leo. So this could be having trouble diagnosing a potential health issue, or it could be unsettling news because something's changing at work and all of your systems for doing your job are all undergoing extreme changes and you're kind of having to learn new things. So it could be things as potentially serious to just kind of frustrating, annoying as that. It really depends on how this impacts your natal chart. If you have Mars and Saturn in Leo, then it's probably going to be harder. And if you have like Venus and Jupiter in Leo, it's probably going to be a bit better. But something about this Mercury retrograde is influenced by Jupiter's square to that Mercury retrograde. So in general, conventional interpretation of Jupiter in the ninth is luck, wealth, and opportunities and abundance in the area of travel and religion and higher education and politics and philosophy and all that kind of stuff here. That's what I'm talking about, Jupiter in your ninth. And so it's almost like your work may be disturbed potentially by travel plans you have, or by your desire to go back to school and develop yourself professionally or educationally. So those are the kinds of things that could be impacting this kind of indecision, as it were. However, I should say that while the Mercury retrograde seems to show like indecisiveness in this area, the solar eclipse seems to show something more permanent is moving forward in relation to that topic. So something to consider. So let's take a look at what Venus is doing. So at the beginning of the month, Venus is in late Virgo. So that's in your 7th house. So for the month of July, you should have been able to enjoy the transit of Venus through Virgo, your 7th house. This is the house of relationships and compromises. So Venus going through that period would, in general, indicate having pleasant social interactions with your partner. Or if you weren't with someone, then it could... the 7th house isn't just romantic partners. It can also be like just the people you are partnered with. So that could be in a business setting. That could even just be like your roommates and how you're like dependent on each other, and you kind of move away from being like 3rd house figures to being like 7th house figures. You have to like figure out life together and you like depend on them. It's kind of the people you have to balance with, the people who you have to compromise with. So it's you most of the time that is a romantic partner, but not always. But in any case, smooth relations with one's partner is what's indicated by Venus transiting through that sign. Now, it's only there for a few days in August before it moves into Libra. So Venus starts going through Libra for the rest of the month of August. And with the 8th house, the 8th house is kind of odd and creepy and scary. So sometimes Venus going through the 8th house can show potentially like unwanted attention, because the 8th house kind of it kind of corrupts, or it's kind of a shady place to go, for planets to go. So it's kind of like a dark alleyway in your chart. So Venus going through the 8th, even though it's in a really good sign, is still, it can indicate sort of attraction to people who maybe aren't good for you, or being tempted by things that appear nice but probably aren't actually that good. And this will become a much bigger deal, obviously, once Venus goes retrograde in a couple of months. But that's another month. So right now we're in August. So that's kind of what Venus does in the 8th house. And let's take a look at what Mars is doing. So at the beginning of the month, Mars is retrograde in Aquarius, where it has been for ages, it seems like, for the past few months. It's in your 12th house. You can see there that 12th house is about rivalries, enemies, seclusion, things you're unaware of, people you're unaware of, strangers, stalkers, that kind of thing. So this is another kind of shady alleyway in your chart. Really the 12th and 8th are two of the more negatively perceived houses in astrology. So having Mars in the 12th probably means that for the past few months you've been dealing with some, odd people who kind of have it out for you. I actually had a stalker incident when Mars was going through my 12th and was going retrograde. So I'm not saying that happens for everyone, but I am saying that I have seen it in my own life. So it can be like your enemy, basically like problems and antagonism and divisions and anger and conflict with like people who kind of have it out for you, your enemies, as well as people you're kind of in competition with. So that's another possible manifestation of Mars in Aquarius. But the interesting thing is that Mars is only in Aquarius until August 13th. It's still retrograde, but it moves back into the previous sign of Capricorn. So it's moving from the 12th house to make a brief dip into the 11th house, which is a much more positive house. But it can still bring its general significations of antagonism and conflicts and bitterness and anger, but into the part of your life that deals with the people who are supposed to support you. So while the 12th is about people who are kind of against you, the 11th is about people who are kind of supposed to support what you do, and people who are like your professional acquaintances, your friends in high places, as it were. So it'll be there for the rest of August, but shortly it will leave, because on August 28th it stations direct and will start, hitting those degrees where it went retrograde, and hopefully moving past the battles and scars of the its time in your Aquarius 12th house. So, one more thing. 2 days before Mars stations direct, there is a full moon at 3 degrees of Pisces. You can see that. You can see that here's the moon. It's at 3 degrees, and it's in the opposite sign to the sun, which is also at 3 degrees. So the full moon will be kind of illuminating, throwing its light onto your first house of appearance and outlook and vitality. So maybe this is like a time for a makeover. Maybe this is a time you it's like the one time a year you, pamper yourself or something. You'd have to look back in an ephemeris at previous times the full moon was in Pisces, which always happens in late August or September, just depending. And you can kind of see what happened before and see how, like, this full moon is sort of more special for you because it's happening in your first house of your appearance and yourself and kind of identity and stuff like that. So that's all I have to say about August 2018 for Pisces risings. If you like this horoscope, please give it a like, give it a share, give it a nice comment. If you want to see content like this continue, I can make it, but it really helps if I have supporters on Patreon who let me know that my work is appreciated and that you want to see it. So even if it's just $1, I really, really appreciate that. It really, really helps me. So thank you so much to everyone who is already doing that. But if it matters to you, I won't turn you down. And if you're interested in seeing what I have to say specifically about your chart, go to my website, www.bigfatastro.com. Take a look at my services. I do offer readings and services and all that kind of stuff, so I can look at your specific chart and we can talk about it. If you want to do that on a budget, I also offer my automated report. It's called the Big Fat Astro Natal Horoscope Report, and basically you just punch in your birth details and it will give you instantly a report based on my custom written out interpretations of every planet and every sign and every house and aspect. So that's worth it. And so I hope you have a great August 2018. I'd love to hear what happens to you in the month, given everything I've told you here. And I look forward to seeing you next time.